Hi, hey, Divorce in Peace. I'm Adi,
And I'm Alla Kurilovnik.
and I'm a mediator here in United States, and I'm a lawyer from Israel. You can tell by my accent that I not so much American. And today, what are we going to talk about?
Today we're going to talk about divorcing in peace. I'm Alla Kurilovnik of Kurilovnik Law and Mediation, a boutique matrimonial family law practice in New York City. And I do both divorce mediation, and divorce litigation. Between Adi and I think we have the United Nations in the room. Adi is from Israel. I'm from the former Soviet Union. I speak fluent Russian, and Adi speaks fluent Hebrew.
You're right. And today we'll speak in English because
Yes.
otherwise you're not going to understand us. It will
That's
be
right.
big. So, and I thought, Ada, that maybe we'll talk about mediation, litigation, because people sometimes they don't know the difference. They know really like when they're talking about mediation to mediate, and but the mediator is a lawyer, is not a lawyer, because litigation. Okay, we're going to court. Whenever I have to choose litigation, they don't know the distinction between the two. So let's focus about that today.
Yeah, I think it'd be nice to educate our listeners about some of the distinctions. So I'm going to let Adi talk to you about the mediation aspect of it, and then I'll speak about the litigation aspect of divorce.
Okay, so mediation in general, it's when two people are coming and they have some, self-determined what are they want, how do they want to see their life as a divorce or separate. And the mediator it should help them, to put it together, to build some bridge between them, to provide some ideas and to create ideas that they didn't think about it. For example, today I have to share with you. I came here and I told Ala about couple that they are going to have a sharing custody. And I said they don't want to pay child support because, they're okay with each other. They don't need. But I told Ala, I know that here in New York, you have to. And then she said, yes, I did. They have to, even $25, but they have to. This is the minimum. So then I told the couples, the parties, I have an idea. If you put one of them will put the $25, we can put it just in a saving account. It doesn't mean that you will get the $25. It means that it will go to your daughter just for a saving account. And they say, wow, it's a great idea. Then they don't feel really like, oh, I'm the one that pay and not she's the one that pay, and they don't need to argue. Right. So this is very, very briefly, but the idea of mediation. And when the party really, both of them, they need to agree to go for mediation, and they need to know that the law is there, is alongside, but is not really with us. Because when you're going to litigation, we'll go to Ala soon, she will explain that you have to go by law,
Right.
one by one, no?
Right. Yes. Mediation is a self-determining process, right? The parties come in, and with the help of a good mediator, they're able to reach an amicable resolution concerning their children, their finances, and basically uncoupling their marriage. And the mediator, as Adi said so craftily, provides them with different ideas of how to do that, right? But if all else fails, and if cooler heads can't prevail, or people cannot reach an amicable resolution, then they may need a third party, like a judge, to make the decisions for them. And that's where my services really come in as a litigator. Of course, I do things such as attorney negotiations, where I help parties reach a resolution just by dealing
which is great, because
negotiations.
Then they don't need to go to court.
That's right. Actually. Then we won't need. That's right. We won't need to go in front of a judge. There's no argument. I mean, look, we zealously represent our clients as attorneys, but we negotiate a deal. So
because people sometimes they are afraid, even if they're going to litigation, to go to court.
Absolutely.
Court is something that you feel like intimidated, like, wow, now I need to be in front of the judge. And
absolutely.
So when you're talking about the negotiation, it's another way, that if you didn't reach mediation and you're going to the next, I think the next level can be, to go to a lawyer and maybe collaborative together. Or
right. I mean, listen, even when I do my litigation cases, there's so much collaboration that goes into it with other professionals. When you're dealing with children, we often collaborate with forensic psychologists, right? Yeah. When we deal with finances, we deal with forensic accountants and real estate appraisals, because you need basically all the marital assets really need a value attached to them, so that people know how to divide that. And even in mediation, Nadi, correct me if I'm wrong.
You're right. In mediation, you're doing it as well. The good thing about mediation, that, for example, here another case that I had, that usually in the United States of America there is alimony, maintenance, you can name it, whatever, and each one has its own formula. But they came to me and they say, okay, we don't want alimony to pay, even though the husband, he makes much more than the wife. Not always it's like that. And they say, instead of that, the husband has money, has a business, and he has an inventory of $1.5 million. So instead of to pay every month alimony, you know what? I can give a bunch of amount, maybe $500,000, $1 million, whatever, and we can solve it instead of to pay. So these things you can do in litigation. I'm not saying not, but in the mediation, right away you will go, I think, outside from the box, and you will try to create any idea that both of the sides will feel okay with that.
Right. I mean, look, I can tell you from my own experience that 90% of the time, nobody's happy with what a judge decides.
This is true.
Because, you're allowing a stranger in a black robe to determine the most personal things about your life. Where your children are going to live, who they're going to live with, who's going to make decisions for them, what they do, who they do it with, what doctors they see. They're going to decide how much money you need, how much money you don't need. They're going to say, so you don't need to go and eat out every night, or you don't need to do this every night.
And that is the beautiful about mediation, like you said, self-determined.
That's
because
right.
all your life, when you got married, when you met your whatever love of your life, or at least you thought about it, you think that is love of your life, you're the one that decide, where to go, what to do, how to raise our kids. You're the one that decide about the details.
That's right.
And suddenly somebody else is going to decide for me.
Right.
It's kind of weird,
It's a difficult thing to swallow, and that's why, look, I advise most of my clients, or, if we can mediate at least a portion of their cases, right?
Yeah, I agree.
At least if there's a custody or visitation aspect that we can mediate, or there's something else that we can mediate, I'll happily use the services of a mediator in my litigation cases. And definitely, even if we're not going through a mediator, I always try to engage the other attorneys in some form of negotiation so that we could stay out of court. Because again, even with both attorneys representing a client, representing spouses in a divorce, there's still some self-determination, right? The attorneys will argue back and forth, right? Wow. But it's still not a judge making the decisions for you. It's still you and your spouse who are making the decisions.
Usually I'm telling to my clients to make it like there is nothing perfect, but to make it like you feel you are satisfied. Usually first I send them to a initial consulting, meet a lawyer in the state they are, if it's New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Florida, whatever. This is first, because knowledge, it's power.
That's right.
And when know, it's good to know. And when you come to the table, you can say, I want $2,000 for alimony. The husband says, yeah, but my lawyer says $1,600. Maybe it will be some difference sometimes between, even with the formula. It's good. And then, because in the mediation, each one will have his side, and then we can find the middle. So this is, yes. And usually, just that you will know, our people that watch us, hopefully, in the end, I have a memorandum that I send the people again, the parties, to a lawyer in order to get to review and to give their insight, the attorney, what do they think, maybe to add, to change, maybe to go back to a mediation, because, I'm a mediator, I'm not a lawyer, let's say in New York, I'm a mediator, even though that I know and I know the lawyer and whatever needs to be, but I'm not a lawyer here. So this is the reason when you're going to mediator, I think you need the two. Always you need this and you need that. Right. Even if the mediator is a lawyer.
That's right. Well, listen, because I do both, I can say this. I have to take off my lawyer hat and put on my mediation, which is very difficult to do because sometimes I just want to reach over the table and say, you should think about this. But I have to do that. I have to take off my, litigation hat and stop being a lawyer and start being a mediator. So even when I do mediation and I have couples come to me who do, seeking mediation, the first thing I say is you should really go consult with an attorney because you want to understand, like an educated consumer about anything, you want to understand what you're getting yourself into. You want to understand what your rights are and what you're giving up, because those are the choices that are the most organic. You make them more organic.
And then you will say, oh, this agreement wasn't fair, wasn't for me. And then the mediator will say, okay, I'm impartial, I'm between, and that's what you decided, and that's what we are going to do. But the attorneys can give you another aspect, legal advice.
That's right. And I often have cases actually like that run alongside of mediation. So I have a case right now where my client, she wanted to mediate her divorce with her attorney. She had a couple of people, names of attorneys that she wanted to go to. She went to one of them, sign up, but I also represent her in consulting with her. Mm-hmm. So she'll, call me before or after a meeting with the mediator and tell me, this is where we spoke about, this is where we are. What do you think? Are we on the right path? Do you think I'm making a mistake? And I'll say, look, either I think maybe you're too low or you're too high or you're being a little unreasonable, because I can say that to her, whereas perhaps a mediator can't.
You're right. So this is our advice. If you're going for mediation, think that you need the attorney not for to represent you in court, but to give you some consulting, like
advice. That's
some advice, legal advice. And if you're going for litigation, so you have to understand it's all the way, and it might be that the judge will
ultimately decide all the issues.
Make the decision about your life.
That's right.
Which is something me as a mediator, with my heart, I say, don't go, because it's like to go to the casino and to throw the dice and let's see what is going to be.
That's exactly what litigation is like. Throw the dice and see which way they roll.
Yes. So which cases do you think that they can't go for mediation?
I think, I don't really think that there are any cases that can't be mediated,
besides
quite frankly.
Violence?
Besides for domestic violence. That's correct. So, those are the kind of cases where I can't meet, nobody, I don't think anybody should mediate or can mediate, because if there's such an unfair or imbalance of power, and if one of these spouses is a victim of domestic violence, you're never going to get a fair result.
And that's what I want to say, especially for women. And today it's the International Day, Women's Day.
Women's International Day, that's right.
If you feel like you have some abuse, even verbal abuse, not just physically, and you are going through divorce, you need a lawyer. You need somebody to support you, to be there, because mediation, it's great, and I'm for mediation. Deep in my heart, I think I believe in it so much, but when it comes to violence, then you need to go to a different path.
Absolutely. And even with that, I mean, it's, you have to be able to let your lawyer really tackle the issue from the legal perspective, because in my experience, in cases that involve domestic violence, there's such an imbalance of power that it's so hard to be able to negotiate between the parties themselves, because it's inevitable, and I've seen it happen
sometimes
so many times.
Sometimes in mediation you can be separated. It's called caucus, that you can sit with each one alone. But if I'm not talking about abuse, I think the divorce, yes, you can divorce in peace. It doesn't mean that you are in peaceful in the beginning, because it's hard. It's hard. It's not easy. It's a very hard process. But I think you can. You have to come with open mind. You have to understand that the example that you are going to set for your kids, this is the example actually that you set for your kids if you're going for mediation. That's what I meant. Because if you're going for mediation, it means you can do things in the right way, in a better way.
Right, in a more amicable way. But thank you for taking the time to listen to me.
Thank you very much.
We've had a great time speaking with you. I'm Alla Kuralapnik of Kuralapnik Law and Mediation, a mediation and law practice in New York City.
And I'm Adi Schaefer, LTA Mediation. And don't forget, think positive, because any thought creates reality. Have a good one.
Have a great day.
Bye-bye.